Happy Friday, and welcome here to another edition of Husker Online Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, back from Nashville, we got a great show on tap today, but man, we had a great time in Nashville, Mr. Sipple, didn't we?
I look forward to going back. It was interesting. It was good to have the staff together. That was great. Learn about the operations, which I've never done. I've never been part of something like that. So that was, I was really struck by it. I kind of look forward to going back.
You came home with new shirts, shoes.
Yeah.
You're wearing one of them, I
don't
see.
know why we got new shoes, but we did. Well, there were some extra ones.
Well, here's the deal. Like, they run these events and sponsors will bring like just way more shirts and so there's just this room at On3 with just tons of like leftover shirts and shoes.
Yeah, there were some Mizunos there, some size 11. So yeah, I stuck them in my bag. But yeah, it was good. I didn't probably have as much fun as you guys did. I didn't see Broadway. I've been to Nashville twice and never did the Broadway thing. So next year I got to do that.
It was a Monday, Tuesday. So, and it wasn't even busy. So like if you wanted to experience Broadway, that would be the way to do it. Because normally on a weekend, it's full of bachelorette parties. And,
yeah, I'm not big on that.
And just crazy, lots of people. Where Monday and Tuesday nights, it was kind of an older crowd. It was tame. I mean,
yeah.
And we were in like the main places. So yeah, we had a good time. And it's just fun to get together with the guys that do what we do at other places.
I know. Bunch of sports writers.
But they do the exact same job we do. Like they're sports writers, but we do a different job, with the engagement and the different elements of the media company we have to do. It's not like we don't just write.
But you're right. From that standpoint, it's interesting. Anyway, yeah.
A lot of fun. It's good to be back. Great show on tap here. Let's get into it. Headline number one. Okay. Talking some NFL Combine. 4 Huskers receive NFL Combine invites. The SEC and Big Ten dominate the Combine invite list with nearly 60% of the total invites to the event. But let's start first with the athletes that got in for Nebraska. Ty Robinson, Thomas Fidone, the tight end, Tommy Hill at corner, Isaiah Naor, a wide receiver. And we'll get into the snubs in our next headline. But 3 of those guys played in the Senior Bowl. So, what did I tell you? You play in the Senior Bowl. You did. That means the scouts want you there.
Yep.
And the 3 Senior Bowl guys did. And then Naor, who played in the East-West Shrine game, and Naor, who opted not to go to Louisville, but instead to the NFL.
Louisville.
He was going to go to Louisville.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And pulled out, signed papers with Louisville. Pulled out, I think, probably once when he figured out he had a combine invite, is my guess.
Probably. How about that now? And then you wrote a story, and maybe the most interesting paragraph I've read this week, that Pro Football Focus, stay with me now, Pro Football Focus ranks Fidone ahead of ahead of Ty Robinson on its big board. First of all, I have to acknowledge at this point. I remember we did a show where I kind of expressed at least a modicum of doubt that Fidone would be not
drafted,
invited, or maybe not even invited to the combine. And you jumped me pretty good, and you were right. I have to acknowledge, as painful as this is, and it is, trust me when I tell you, painful, I have to acknowledge that you were right. Not only were you right about that, but Pro Football Focus ranks Fidone 162 on its big board, ahead of Ty Robinson, who's at number 229, Tommy Hill 256, and Nash Hutmacher at 290. Pro Football Focus rates 328 prospects. So good call, Sean. And I don't. Listen, I want to be clear on something with Fidone. I like Fidone. I think he's a good player. You were just much more bullish on him than I was.
Well, I know what he can be, and I felt like at times he just, for various reasons, he just wasn't used to his full capability. He had injuries as well. But I think the quarterback play a year ago, not this past year with Raiola, but a year ago, was so all over the map between Sims and Harburg and Purdy. He just dealt with a lot of different things.
He got lost a little bit in all that fray. He got
all the receivers suffered.
100.
And they had to like install like the option just to like, move the ball.
That's right.
Remember?
That's right. Yeah. Of course I remember.
Was it Satterfield made that joke to Scotty Walden when we were in or in the camp?
Yeah, he said, I'm sorry you have to. He apologized to Scotty Walden for having to watch Nebraska's offense
because they
film.
Well, because they really didn't run. They just had to run something to like, control game and put together some drives.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't trying to be flashy, but Donnie didn't really benefit from that, And this year he had a good year, solid year, not a great year, but I think there's more there with him. Where I look at Ty Robinson, he's a 6 year, and I do think the NFL draft people ding you a little bit being 6 years into.
Let's stop there. There's an interesting part of that conversation I had with a former coach. It's interesting. The question from somebody was, would he have benefited from going out earlier, Ty Robinson? Yes and no. See, well, NFL people look at his age and sort of, will that work against him? It might, but I would tell you this about Ty Robinson. He was never better, and it wasn't even close, than he was this year, right? He didn't play last season like he played this season. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Not even close. So in that sense, his 6 year benefited him. I don't know if I were an NFL personnel person, that I would use that as a strike against him, except what you're going to say is, yeah, but he's 24 or 23, whatever he is. Yeah, he is, but he started playing his very best football last season. So you're going to get that.
So Ty turns.
The question is, how long are you going to get?
To put age in perspective, though, Ty turns 24 in March, a couple weeks, March 3rd.
It's pretty old.
Patrick Mahomes, who's already put together an NFL Hall of Fame career, is still 29.
Right. See,
so like I think you have to measure like the NFL wants that like 21-year-old fresh horse coming in,
right? I get that.
But some guys can't. A lot of guys can't do that.
Right. I totally understand.
You have to just be a physical, gifted, genetic freak to just move right in like that. A lot of guys need those years in college.
Right. And I would say Ty did, because Ty, again, in his 6th year, started playing fully up to his capability. Now, the other part of that discussion is not every guy ages the same. If I were a personnel man, I might take a chance on Ty and say, well, let's just see where he is at age 28, 29. He takes care of himself really well. And my guess is he'll keep getting better. I guess what I'm telling you is, if I were in those shoes of drafting, an NFL personnel person, I would not use it against Ty, his age.
I think they do, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
And I'm sure they have kind of like a chart of
yeah,
wear and tear and analytics and numbers and data that,
probably,
you know, like this knocks you back.
Probably.
But again, he needed that year. Now Nayor's Nayor's one of those guys that could go to the combine,
yeah,
and put together a great workout.
Well,
and we're all going to be like, where was that?
Yeah, he's going to strip down in front of those guys, and he looks like he's the quintessential elite athlete.
He's got one of the somebody at Nebraska told me when you measure his arm length for his height, he's got one of the longest wingspans. It's like over 7 foot.
Yeah, he's, like I said, he's a quintessential elite athlete. And coaches, GMs, they get enamored with that, sometimes overly so. They see that sort of frame, that sort of makeup, and they say, okay, yeah, I know on film he didn't win 50-50 balls. It didn't look like he had that dog in him, but we're going to get it out of him. That's what we're going to do.
The Iowa game, he had the big drop.
They
lost the game, by the way. I mean, if we're just being real.
Right. And he lost out on some 50-50 balls that were critical. And Satterfield, this is not Sean and Sipple dogging Nayor. This is, go back to what Satterfield said after the game where he didn't come down with a 50-50 ball, and Satterfield said to us, to the media corps, that's being addressed. Trust me, that's being addressed.
Oh, and it sounded like Holgorsen told him during the bowl that they were just kind of moving on, and that's why he left. He didn't show up to one bowl practice. He was out.
And there he gets a combine invite.
Yeah, think about so Robinson, we all agree, no brainer. But the other 3 invites, when you just talk about it from a fan, all kind of had some baggage or controversy. Like Fedoni, we discussed it just now. Nayor, we've just discussed it. Then Tommy Hill. I mean,
Same.
Tommy Hill on paper was, some people thought he could be a first rounder, and then he dealt
at one point that was out there. I think one guy.
ESPN though.
Yeah.
And the Colorado game, he gets a big pick 6.
Yep.
I mean, they limited Travis Hunter to one of his more ordinary games. Like Travis Hunter didn't run free on Nebraska.
No, he didn't.
So he had some good things going, but then at that point, it just kind of went down. The Illinois game, from that point on, and is it Pat, the receiver at Illinois?
He's Pat Bryant.
Pat Bryant, who's a high-level NFL receiver, just cooked Tommy Hill.
Yeah, he did. And that you wonder about if that hurt his confidence. But again, in a sense, Tommy Hill gets for now, the last word, right?
Yeah, he got
the combine.
He gets a clean slate. He weighed 210 at the Senior Bowl. Let's see what he weighs in Indy.
Looked a little heavy.
Because you're not going to run 4.4 at 210 probably.
Probably not. Now, here's the thing about Tommy, though, and you know this. Long levers, 6'1", good football instincts. There's some, if he gets everything out of his ability, he can probably play in the NFL. But that's the question. Will he get everything out of his ability? More often than not, guys don't. And guys that don't make it. Tommy, if he plays to his utmost ability, can play in that league. The question is, will he do that? That's the question. But you're right. All of them, except for Ty, you kind of wondered about a little bit. Fedoni, again, I know we got to move on. Fedoni, when he walks in a room, what do you think? Oh, God. 6'6", 255, athletic. He looks like an NFL tight end.
And I'll make this prediction. He'll run a time that most Nebraska fans will be like, oh, wow. Like, he'll run faster.
And what will happen is most Nebraska fans will say, where was that? Where was that? That's what they're going to say.
Hey, and I wanted to go back to this real quick. 188 of the 329 combine invites from the Big Ten and the SEC.
What's Rule always say about the Big Ten? It's the closest league to the NFL.
Yeah, the SEC has more invites by a little bit.
I get that. But why does he say that about the Big Ten?
Because it develops linemen and
size.
But 57.1% of the combine invites are from these 2 leagues. Now, not every player, though, that makes the combine gets drafted. There's 329 invites. There's only 257 draft picks. Mm-hmm. So this doesn't mean anything for a guy. I mean, you still have
a little bit.
It means a lot. Yeah, it does, but it doesn't mean you're for sure going to get drafted. I think it's
no. You can combine your way out of this.
Like Nash Hutmar, and we'll get in this next headline, could still get drafted.
Yeah, and you can go to the combine and cost yourself if you're not careful.
All right, before we get into headline 2, Husker Online headlines brought to you by Omaha Steaks. And right now, during the President's Day sale, you can get up to 50% off site-wide at Omaha Steaks. Plus, our listeners are going to get another $20 off at checkout by using the promo code HuskerOnline. And get on there, look at all the options. I know it's Valentine's Day today. I mean, how great would it be to not have to go out and you've just got some lobster tails and filet mignons from Omaha Steaks.
Yeah, that's not a bad play. She might want to go out.
She might want to go out, but for the weekend. But it's not just steaks.
She might want to go out and show you off.
Show you off in that new on 3 quarter zip you're wearing there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ladies want to do that.
They got chicken, they have pork, side items, and again, a lot of already marked down boxes that are up to 50% off, and then we're going to give you $20 off with that promo code HuskerOnline. Use that at checkout to get the extra $20. Thanks to Omaha Steaks for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Headline Show. Okay, let's get to headline 2. Nash Hutmacher among one of the combine snubs for Nebraska. No Bryce Benhart, no Ben Scott, no Jamal Banks, no Isaac Gifford.
Those would be the guys.
Those would be. I mean, Brian Buschini punters don't usually get invited. And look, when you put it in perspective, only 320 some guys go, and only 257 get drafted. So for these guys, it means pro day is going to be a really, really big deal.
And you say in your story, you think it's pro day will be March 25th?
Yeah, that's the expected pro date, which is also the week when spring practice begins.
Now, as far as Nash goes, we're using the word snub, and I think that's apt. Before I would go, I'm not speaking for you, but before I would go too far down the road of grave injustice, what a ripoff, that sort of thing, I'd want to look at who got the invites at D-line, literally man by man, which I'm considering doing for a column. Did he get snubbed? Or is it just the guys that got invited are the guys that probably should belong there? I don't want to do the injustice thing until I look at, let's see how many they invited and let's see who they are.
And, some things like they may not have liked his measurables.
Yeah.
Like his arms, his height. I mean, there's things that they look at that determine, like, all right, this guy needs to be there. We feel like he's an elite prospect. And look, Nash Hutmacher's not the tallest. He doesn't have the longest arms, but he's one of the strongest players that Nebraska's had in a number of years.
I will say this again. And you can do this, Sean. I mean, I always do that. We always kind of do that thing that we're not football guys, but we've watched it for quarter century in your case and longer in mine. You kind of know what it takes. And I would look at Nash based on what I've seen in 4 or 5 years and say he's a fringe guy. He's fringe. He's not an automatic. He'll have to work really hard to get on a roster. Ty, not a he's going to make a roster. Ty, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in a starting lineup. It wouldn't surprise me.
With Nash, you just wonder, like, the yo-yoing he's done with his weight. Like, what is the
weight for him?
For the next level?
Depends on the defense, right?
Like, do they want him quicker and lighter, or does he need to get back up to a heavier size?
Well, that will be dependent on what defense
3-4 versus 4-3,
right? And what they ask of him. If they're playing, Sean, if they ask him to play true nose, just a true plugger, then they're going to ask him to play at, what do you think, 330, 325? If he's not over the center, lighter. But see, here's the thing about him: he can do either. I think. Is he big enough to be a true NFL nose? Is he big enough? That's yeah. I don't know.
And then you look at Benhart and Scott. Both of them were 6-year seniors.
Yeah. And
when you kind of stuff the draft pool with a bunch of older linemen, they're just not going to. It's a lot of players. I mean, there's just a lot of older players now in the draft. Very few young players. Like only 70 some underclassmen declared this year.
As far as that whole thing goes, Benhart is the one I thought might get the invite, because look at him. Look at his experience. Now he's old. I know people are always going to use that against these guys, but look at him. There's just not that many guys that big and that athletic. He really streamlined his body. I think he'll have a shot to play because he's taken such good care of himself. He's not sloppy. He's a good looking special.
I don't recall him ever getting injured.
Doesn't get injured. Smart.
I mean, he left Nebraska with the most starts, I believe, of any offensive lineman or player in history.
And that's partly because
COVID. He started 2020, 21, 2, 3, 4. 5 years. 5 year starter.
And there's something to be said for that. He had to win the job every year, Sean. I mean, some guys can't do that. He had to win the job every year. So I like him.
Well, they tried to remove him when they put Teddy to left and Corcoran to right. And then Teddy got hurt and they had to go back to him. So I think he's gotten better over his career for sure. And he'll be a guy. Pro day is going to be big for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, but we're kind of back in business, it feels like. Like last year, we really didn't even have to pay attention to the draft. Nobody drafted.
There were no combine invites.
No combine invites. Nobody drafted. Pro day was not a big deal. This year it's a little different. It feels like it should feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at 3 to 4 draft picks, though.
Yeah, and it needs
maybe 5, but probably 3 to 4.
It needs to be more than that, but that's Nebraska in recent years has had 2 draft classes where nobody got drafted. That's got to stop. I'm not going to do the thing where I get obnoxious on my high horse, but it's got to stop. I mean, those teams that you're chasing. Imagine Oregon going through a draft with nobody drafted.
Sip, do you know how many combine invites Ohio State had?
Okay, we're going to do this.
15.
See, that's the issue. That is the central issue. Sean, do you know how much that matters?
It matters a lot.
Yeah. I would like to see the number for Oregon.
Hold on. I have a chart here. I'm going to get it pulled up for Megan here to post here. But Nebraska is like right in the middle of the
that's where Nebraska is right in the middle. Do you want to be right
in the middle of the combine data?
Do you want to be right in the middle of the conference for the rest of time?
No.
Or do you want to be playing in the college football playoff? Well, if you are, and you really think you're going to win, and you're facing a team that has 15 combine invites, and you have 4, just based on that data alone, who would you pick, Sean?
The teams that have more dudes. Okay, exactly. I'm sending this to Megan. I want you to see
based on that data
alone, the data of. She's going to pull this up here. The data of Big Ten combine invites per team, and there'll be some surprises to you on this, but there's definitely not surprises. But I think the one that really surprises me.
Okay, here we go.
Is Minnesota has 6.
First of all,
Iowa at 7.
First of all, this is invaluable. This is invaluable.
I posted this on the Red Sea Scrolls yesterday.
And I missed it. Ohio State 15, Oregon 12. Coincidentally, those were the best teams in the league this year, except Penn State was good too.
Yeah, Penn State returns 14 starters. So Penn State's a little deceiving on their lack of invites because they're all coming back because they're all getting paid.
Reminiscent of Ohio State last year, right? Right?
Yeah, scroll it back down there a little bit, Megan. I don't know if we lost the...
There we go. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. Rip through them and what you think. Ohio State 15, Oregon 12, Michigan 9 in a down year, right?
Iowa and Minnesota are the ones I think that really surprise you with 7 and 6, but it just is a testament to PJ Fleck and Kirk Ferentz that they don't gritty beats pretty. They find guys that they want to develop that have the measurables and the levers, and then they develop them.
Gritty beats pretty in that regard, but gritty doesn't beat pretty in terms of Minnesota beating Ohio State, Minnesota beating Oregon.
Minnesota almost beat Michigan. They should have.
You do this a lot. I love you, Sean. You know that. But almost, you put a big emphasis on almost.
Yeah, Nebraska almost beat Ohio State.
I don't give a damn about almost. Almost means nothing to me.
Yeah, nobody remembers Nebraska's almost win in Columbus.
No, who cares? You get the job done or you don't.
When the Ohio State fans were throwing bottles on the field.
Right. And God bless you. I understand where you're coming from. People do that all the time. It drives me nuts.
How about Indiana?
They almost won. Yeah, great. That's
Indiana with only 2.
I'm sorry?
Indiana has only 2, and Rourke is one of the 2.
You must have a lot back.
Or they just coached them up.
Yeah.
I mean, USC only has 3. Wisconsin only has 3.
And Illinois has 1.
They return a lot.
Yeah. But Brett Bielema.
Illinois is the receiver.
They won't like that number at Illinois. You can't do that. You can't. You're not competing with those guys at the top with 1. It's a bad number.
Yeah, and UCLA had more than Nebraska. Maryland had more than Nebraska.
Sean, I need to screenshot that.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah. That's really good data.
I'll have my secretary send you the paperwork.
It's really interesting data, and you're right about Penn State. It's a low number, but it's because they got guys back. It's deceiving.
All right. Well, I will get us into headline number 3. Before we do that, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes you just need someone to talk to. You might be having a rough day. You might be going through a rough patch in your life, have some personal problems, family things, whatever. And you just need that person to talk to help you get through the day-to-day challenges. And maybe you don't have time to go schedule an appointment and go visit an in-person therapist. BetterHelp is there for you. They make it so much easier. They match and pair you with a therapist, that fits you, and you do it on your time. You schedule it. You do it from your phone or a computer screen, and you simply have someone to talk to. And we're going to give you a great deal. If you've never tried BetterHelp, we're going to give you 10% off your first month. All you need to do is go to betterhelp.com/Husker. Again, that is betterhelp.com/Husker. That will get you 10% off that first month of BetterHelp. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. Okay, let's go to 3. Scott Frost took a veiled shot at former athletic director Trev Alberts. As we know, Frost now the head coach at Central Florida. Trev Alberts now the athletic director of Texas A&M. Frost held kind of one of his more extended press conferences, first extended, other than his hiring press conference. But you were fascinated by this. We posted it coming home on Wednesday, and it took off. I mean, this thing became quite a story in our market, just the shot that he took at Al. He didn't say Alberts by name, but made it pretty clear.
I'll read it. Should I read it?
Yeah, read it, please.
Okay. So you noticed this Wednesday afternoon or early Wednesday evening. This is what Frost said. And he's talking about Terry, I'm going to say Mohajir. Does that sound about right? That he's talking about the U.S.
His new athletic director at Central Florida.
Yeah, okay. So he says, Terry's been great. I'm so grateful to have an AD that's on my side and working alongside me. When you're in the other situation, it's really difficult and it's really debilitating, to be honest with you. When you feel like you're working and you don't have somebody right there alongside you. Terry and I are on the same page. He's trying to give us everything that he can to be successful. It's a good partnership. I'm grateful to him. So, as you pointed out, it's a very thinly veiled shot at Trev Alberts. And Frost is saying his situation at Nebraska perhaps dragged him back.
What's interesting, though, is he did have the AD at Nebraska on his side.
And went 12-20.
Moose.
Yeah, and Frost's record with Moose was 12-20. And then Trev Alberts was hired. And this is when we get into the interesting meat of the discussion. Alberts was hired in July of 2021. So right away, any AD, it doesn't matter if it's Trev Alberts or Bob Devaney, the situation is going to be tough for that AD.
That was on the heels of 2020 when Nebraska went 3-5, 2020, 3-5.
Yeah, my bad. 3-5.
But they were double-digit favorites against Minnesota and Illinois.
Bad loss.
The Illinois loss was a bad Illinois team.
It was a horrifying loss.
And honestly, that was one of the worst. And then Minnesota came in to Lincoln that year with like 40 players
depleted. And
Nebraska, it's funny though, those two games really kind of turned the tide of that year.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't feel. They won that Rutgers game late, and they beat Purdue,
and then declined the bowl.
And they beat Penn State, but they kind of fell into that win. They were very fortunate to win that game.
That was a very disappointing season for Penn State across the board. So there's the setup. Now
that's what Alberts is looking at when he comes here.
That's what Alberts is looking at, and and this is where people would be interested. Because we're privy to some information, but in real time, I hope people understand in real time, some of this stuff you just can't really address too much, although we did to a certain degree. But we know that Trev and Frost got off on a bad foot. But it didn't really surprise me then. Doesn't surprise me now. Again, I just emphasize 12-20. Trev's got to assess the situation. And if you assess that situation as Sean Callahan or Trev Alberts or some other AD, you're going to look at it and go, oh, this isn't, hey, there's a lot that's not good here, right? You just don't give him you don't give the guy a clean slate.
Well, and let's go back to when they forced Bill Moose out, and they forced him out.
Nebraska did.
Bill Moose didn't retire.
100%.
They did that for a reason.
Yeah, that's probably right. I didn't think of that angle, but yeah.
They did it because they wanted more oversight, and they felt like the football program needed someone over the top of it more. Mm-hmm. That was going to push Frost. And
then what did Trev do immediately with Frost?
The opening meeting.
But then what? Cut his salary.
Almost
immediately, right?
And then forced staff changes after that.
Cut his salary and forced staff changes.
And then kind of hung him out to dry with those coach allegations over
the analyst,
which
that hung him out to dry completely. Now, in hindsight, you'd look at all those things and go, yeah, Frost was in trouble. You kind of knew it at the time, though, too. Now, so go back to what Frost is saying. Why is he saying this? Why is he saying it? It's a bad look for Frost. Why? It's a bad look for Frost because it's Frost not taking ownership. It's Frost blaming it, throwing the blame elsewhere. When you know, and I know, and everybody knows that covered it at all, this was a Frost issue.
I mean, his final game in Memorial Stadium, they allowed the most yards ever in that stadium.
It was a debacle.
Like the Georgia Southern game, I'll never forget. Like, but we all were like, "Oh, they can't fire him though." At that point, because we didn't think Trev would want to pay him that extra money, but they also couldn't gamble and wait past Rutgers and Indiana because he probably would have won those games, and then you'd be firing him off wins.
Oh, it would have gotten really,
because we saw like Mickey won those games. Then all of a sudden, people wanted Mickey to get the job.
Right.
And so, like, if Frost would have won those games, it'd have been like, oh, we're back. He's got him back.
Risk.
I mean,
there was only one move at that point.
Yeah. I mean, Trev he wanted to take the shot, and that was the time to do it. And he did.
For people getting ready to say, Sipple, you weren't particularly hard on Frost. Because I wanted that last season, just to see if he could pull out of it. And I was kind of hard on Frost, by the way. People conveniently forget some of the columns I write. But that last season, so the last season was what, 20?
Yeah, he coached 3 games of the 22 season.
Okay, so that season, it spun out of control so fast and became so evident of what was going on. Ripping him at that point, we were, but it didn't really mean anything. The point is, it spun out of control fast. The whole, let's just wait to see if Frost can pull this plane out of a tailspin. It was never even it wasn't happening. It was terrible. What happened in Dublin? Bad loss to a team that
I honestly didn't think there was any way they could lose that game in Ireland. I thought they had that game easily.
So they lose to
a team that won one game.
They lose in Dublin. And we come back and they're going to play North Dakota. And I've told that story to you about how I ran into Eric Chenander outside the stadium 2 days after they got back from Dublin. And I talked to Chenander and we were man to man, just having a man to man discussion. I said, you got this? You think you got this under control? He hedged and I saw the eyes. I've seen fear in coaches' eyes and it was there. He knew. Sean, I'm going to tell you something. Eric Chenander knew at that moment they're in trouble. I walked away from him, and I think I called you and said they're in trouble. They're in trouble. He didn't have a handle on it.
Then Georgia Southern came in and just
Chenander knew that he didn't have it under control. And you saw it against Georgia Southern.
They were playing like soft shell defense, and Georgia Southern was just taking free yards the whole game.
Troy Helton was like Nick Saban. I mean, he schooled
Clay Helton.
Yeah, Clay. I'm so sorry.
Come on, James Palmer.
I'm so you got me. Thanks for having my back. Clay Helton schooled Nebraska like you'll see few coaches school a team. Schooled them.
Well,
it's over.
They kept recognizing like Tommy Hill was playing way off. And they're like, okay, we'll just keep throwing it 8-10 yards, keep taking it.
So you had a great point earlier in the week. Frost has got to stop doing this now. He's going to have a lot, and you made a great point. He's going to have a lot of opportunities now because he's going to be in front of the mic again. He went 2 years without being in front of a mic. Now he's going to be in front of a mic. Don't do this, Frost. Don't do it.
Mainly because if you do, around here, there's like 55,000 sports talk shows and YouTubers.
And here we are.
And every one of them is going to, like, in a place like Nebraska with a lot of microphones, everyone's going to talk about it.
I like Frosty. I would tell him, don't do this. Just leave Nebraska out of it.
Turn the page.
Yeah. Wow, that sounded like somebody familiar.
Turn the page. Sorry. All right. I got you. All right. Before we go to headline number 4, Husker Online headlines brought to you by HelloFresh. It is that time of year. You do not want to go grocery shopping all the time because it's snowy, icy, dealing with all the things you got to deal with at the store. It's just not sometimes a pleasant experience. You also want to eat healthy. Well, HelloFresh does it all for you easily. You get every week, they have about 50 different choices that you can pick And you can say, I want 2 servings, 4 servings, 6 or 8. You want healthy, you want protein based, you want spicy, vegetarian, you name it. They have all the options, and you pick the meals you want. It's as simple as saying, hey, I want 2 meals for just my wife and I, just twice a week. Hey, there's 2 nights of the week. We're home for dinner. We're going to cook dinner at home together. Let's do it this way. Let's the heck with going to the grocery store and trying to find the ingredients you need to make a certain meal. They send it all to you, the produce, the meats, the spices, the recipe cards. And a lot of these meals take 20, 30 minutes tops to make. So you get it all right there. It's healthy. It's easy. And at HelloFresh, they're going to give you 10 free meals and a high protein item for the life of your HelloFresh order. Just go to HelloFresh.com/Husker10FM. That's HelloFresh.com/Husker10FM. That stands for free meals, the FM at the end. And they're going to give you a free protein item and 10 free meals as well for the life of your subscription, over the life of that subscription. Thanks again to HelloFresh. We've used it now for a couple of years and really, really high on their product and what they're able to offer. Thanks again to HelloFresh for sponsors here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, let's get into headline number 4. A shorthanded Nebraska team suffers tough loss to Maryland. And I was at the game last night. Packed house. I mean, nearly 50. I think the scan ticket number was nearly 15,000, which on a night like the cold and the snow.
It's a great crowd.
And it was a remarkable crowd, a remarkable showing. They got Maryland's best shot. I mean, that was their starting 5, because that's all who scored for them, was as good of a starting 5 as Nebraska's probably faced all year.
Let's think about that.
Derek Queen. Well, UCLA was injured.
Yeah, it wasn't UCLA.
I said this on the board. You could argue that might have been the best team that has played in the arena this year.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I just like to think that.
Indiana,
no,
UCLA, UCLA.
Yeah, not UCLA.
I said maybe Illinois.
Yeah, could be.
Because the one guy for Illinois is also a lottery pick.
Kasparis. I can't say
the European.
Yeah. Kasparis is his first name.
But PBA has hosted now 4 legit lottery picks this year. Harper and Bailey at Rutgers. Right now, they're projected number 2 and 3. The guy from Illinois is projected top 10. And then last night, Derek Queen on 3 currently has him number 13 in the draft. And Derek Queen was a dude.
Oh, Derek Queen is a freshman. He's a 6'10", 6'10" or 6'11" freshman. Very, very eye-opening to watch because of his skill. I mean, his size is good, all that. His skill is what jumps out.
9 of 11 rebounds, 6 for 6 on free throws.
What jumps out is a behind-the-back dribble routine in the open floor. What jumps out is like the bank shot he made from about 15 feet.
I mean, look at Sam Hoiberg in this picture. Is that a matchup you'd want to see?
No. Derek Queen is a very interesting player. Sean Morris, so you watched it at the arena. I watched it on the TV. Sean Morris said in another life, when the NBA played back to the basket, Derek Queen would be like a top 5 type pick. As it is, probably top 13. He'll work in the current NBA world. Yeah. And they, by the way, 5 guys in double figures for Maryland last night. Their 5 guys average double figures for the season. That's the way they are.
What that was a very highly paid starting 5. And probably, they're Under Armour's flagship school. Yeah. So they have money for basketball.
Yep.
And that's probably the difference between when you get to that level of NIL and basketball. Nebraska does not have that kind. I mean, they have money, but not like that.
Right. I think you're right.
And so where it showed up to me last night was their ability to attack the rim, their ability to protect the rim, and
100.
And then
and they could shoot. They were Sean. They shot from the 3-point line 7 for 15.
Their swing passing was at a different level, and they hit the shots. I mean, in some of the low post passing, it was frustrating because that arena wanted it so bad, and They got back into it a couple times down to 2, but they never got the ball with a chance to tie.
I don't think they did. Maryland went up 11 early in the second half, and you thought, it was 54. It was 54-43. Maryland went on a 6-0 run, but Nebraska in short order came back with its own 6-0 run. got back to 54-49, and then it was on. The game never was pretty close from that point on, but I think you're probably right that Nebraska never had a chance down 2 to tie or go ahead. I don't think they did. But anyway, now Maryland, we're making a lot of Maryland, and Mike DeCourcy has them as a 7th seed.
I mean, they've won 19 games.
I like them. I think they're a team that can win a couple, if not more, in the NCAA tournament. Not everybody agrees with that because of, I guess some people would say they don't have the depth, whatever.
Creighton doesn't have the depth either. I mean, there's teams that can play with 5 or 6.
It's a little dangerous, but they look like that type of team to me that can go deep. We have established that the Big Ten doesn't necessarily have an elite team, but now that I look at it going down the stretch, okay, maybe they don't have a 1 seed or a team you would say definitely going into the Final Four, but they have, I would say, several that can go deep in the tournament.
Like a lot of teams that could be second weekend teams.
And yeah, maybe even a step further. Like who you think of? Wisconsin, you think of that way.
Well, Purdue, Michigan State,
Purdue,
UCLA on the right draw.
Purdue, let's name them. Wisconsin, Purdue,
Michigan
State, Michigan, UCLA at 5, off the top of our head, Maryland 6. There's a lot of them. We're probably missing some.
Right now, there's 10 projected teams from the Big Ten to make the tournament, and Nebraska is anywhere between 9 and 10. That's where they're at.
That game last night was informative in that, let's just be real. Who's the better team?
Maryland was.
Maryland's a better team. I mean, you don't say that about everybody Nebraska plays, but clearly better.
Well, especially when you're missing Burke.
Oh, that's the other one.
And Asijan and Bryce, your 2 scorer, are battling flu.
Flu-like symptoms.
And Asijan was not right.
0 for 6.
Like he couldn't get his feet set, didn't shoot right.
0 for 6.
Bryce made some key shots in the second half, but he wasn't able to really sluggish. He didn't really attack the rim like he normally would.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. He looked a little sluggish. 5 for 13 from the field, 3 for 9 from deep. As usual, Bryce hit his free throws. He's a 90% free throw shooter and hit 7 of 7. Gary was excellent most of the night, 22 points, missed some key shots down the stretch. But God, Sean, I'm not going back on what I said. Maryland's better, but Burke makes a big difference in that game.
Well, and if you're how does Nebraska win games like this? Well, number one, they have to defend at the elite level we've seen at times this year.
Burke's 6'10".
And Fred Hoiberg, every coach will say this. He knows how to draw up actions and movements to get anybody a shot. And he's really, I mean, people always compliment how hard Nebraska is to defend because of what Fred draws up.
For sure. And Nebraska's been a good defensive team, but look what Maryland did. They come in here. I agree with you on the offense part, but on defense last night, and I'm not saying it was always bad defense, but Maryland came in last night and shot in the second half 14 of 22 in the second half from the field. That's not from the free throw line. 14 of 22 from the field. That's 64% they shot in the second half. So it was, to me, this was more about Nebraska couldn't get stops. They just couldn't get the stops. You were at the game. I watched.
Maryland did what they wanted, and then when they miss, I mean, they already wore one of the best second chance point teams and offensive rebounds in the country. I think 32% of their points come off second chance points.
Queen 6'11", Julian Reese is 6'10". Oh, and they're ballers
in the arena. Like, look, Nebraska fans get on opposing teams, but that was like one where there was definitely some good back and forth. I mean, between Creighton hosting UConn this week and Nebraska hosting Maryland, you had some East Coast bullies coming into the state. And both teams lost those games this week. But
no. Oh, yeah.
Creighton lost to UConn.
Yeah.
But you could sense that. I mean, those teams come in like East Coast bullies, and they thrive in kind of like going at the fans a little bit and back and forth. I mean, the player got teed up.
Yeah, Julian Reese got teed up. He was talking. I don't know if who he was talking to. I think the refs. It was a little unclear to me after a dunk, he got a little loose.
They were waving at the crowd a little bit, just doing some stuff. But hey, good team.
Hey, one thing we should address: Juwan Gary I was surprised by this. Thankfully, Robbins at these games, he quotes guys. I was surprised Gary was pretty tough on the team. He said it's tough, this loss, especially at this point in the season. You never think that the day of the game you might get sick, but that stuff happens. Life happens. We had no urgency. We had 2 guys not at 100% and 1 guy down, but at the end of the day, that still doesn't define what we did today. We didn't come out with any intensity, no toughness, nothing like that. And when we did, it was too late. I was a little surprised by that. Now, ebbs and flows of a season, a long basketball season, you're not going to play your best every night. And you're not even going to be at your peak form in terms of intensity every night. As much as you'd like to think you can, it's hard.
They've now lost 3 home games.
Yeah, which is surprising.
USC, Rutgers, and now Maryland. And USC and Rutgers are the ones you wish they would have won. They should have won those games.
Look at what Robin put up on the board. Nebraska's still in bracket matrix.
106 of 106.
They're still in. This loss to me, correct me if I'm wrong, it just puts a little more pressure on them.
Yeah, if they would have won this game, you'd have been like, all right, they've moved up a seed maybe.
Yeah. Instead, now I look at it like, you better go beat Northwestern on Sunday.
They're a 10 probably right now, maybe an 11.
Yeah, but you're playing with fire now.
But yeah, the line, like Wake Forest lost this week. I mean, there's not much of a bubble. That's the one thing helping Nebraska. Like, there's not a lot of, the bubble is not like what it has been. But
again, to me, this loss, what it does is just puts a little more pressure on you.
All right, let's before we take it to our final headline, odds and ends. Husker Headlines brought to you by Rocket Money. If you're not familiar with Rocket Money, it helps you save money, and it's really simple. You put in all your different financial things, and it lets you know like when bills are getting paid, what bills you might have coming up, how much money you're spending. I got a report from Rocket Money how much my wife's spending at Starbucks. Wasn't pretty.
This is Valentine's Day.
But it let me know how much my wife was spending at Starbucks.
Did you show her that?
I made her aware, like, hey, thanks to our great sponsor, Rocket Money, I know you now spend this much each month at Starbucks. It's great. But they keep track of what's going in and what's going out, and they even will help you negotiate. Like, it lets you know all your streaming services. What are you paying subscriptions for? Like, at one point, Steve Sipple had 4 subscriptions to different online newspapers he didn't even know he had.
It was eating me up to the tune of over $100 a month. Trix made me aware of it.
He was able to cancel those, but
got him canceled.
They will help you negotiate your subscriptions with different places, whether it's like Sirius XM, OnStar, Spectrum Cable. I mean, they'll say, hey, we noticed you're paying this. We think we can get your rate lower, and their representatives will reach out and try to get you a better rate. So
save money. It's
a great program. Give them a try. Our average member receives $740 of savings a year when using Rocket Money. So check them out. Go to their website, rocketmoney.com/game on today. That's rocketmoney.com/game on. Thank you to Rocket Money for sponsors here on HuskerOnline Headlines. Let's get to headline 5, odds and ends. Want to hit on stadium discussion. We still don't really know the full details of the stadium project, what it's going to consist of. But June is more than likely when it's going to hit the Regents. But a lot of question, what will the cost be? And, the best thing I can tell you is it's going to be probably somewhere between the $450 million that Nebraska initially proposed. Kansas has recently redone their stadium for $450.
Or they're in the midst.
And then Penn State's is at $700 million.
Those programs are in the midst of it.
I would say Nebraska's will be more than $450.
Okay.
But it won't be up to, if I had to guess, probably like $550.
Not $700.
It's going to be in that range of $450 to $700 in that window.
Okay.
If I had to guess where it's going to fall. But a lot of it, I still want to know what's it all going to look like.
By the way, just so people are clear, that's an educated guess. It'll be more than 450. It'll probably be less than 700. The question is how close to 700. And again, you've talked to people. It's close. Could it get close to 700?
It could. Like Arrowhead Stadium's doing a full redo right now after the World Cup in 26, and that's gonna be 800.
So that's what you're dealing with. It's probably 500 to 700 million.
And there's going to have to be some expensive work done that won't be as sexy, like some of the underbelly of the stadium that is over 100 years old. and
the guts,
and they have to get in there and redo some of the interiors of the stadium that have not been done in 100 years.
some significant work.
And when you walk in like the stadium, like the east west, like in those little like tunnel hallways, I mean, you see that old brick. I mean, I think it's been around for a long time.
Yep. The old gray lady. That's why they.
Well, yeah, we'll that's my best guess today on kind of what that, but nothing's going to happen until after the 26th season.
Okay, in terms of construction.
Yeah.
And
So
again, we should make clear to people, we will find out probably the full plan in
June. None of the timelines have been delayed. That's the plan though, right now.
Okay.
I always wonder now when Trev Alberts proposed his plan, like we just got a price tag number, but not like much scope. I always wondered when it was going to start.
I can't. God, don't do that to me. I can't.
But would it have been going on right now?
Yes, it would have.
That's what I thought.
No, we do know that. I can say that unequivocally. There would be construction right now. Like
it was going to happen after the 23 season, if I'm not mistaken.
After the 24 season.
The 24 season.
Right.
Okay, that was all going to begin.
Yeah. So I think there'd be construction going on right now, which would be interesting. Now, that's not the case.
All right. Coaching staff salaries. And earlier this week, I posted this in the 321 article. Nebraska is set to pay, coaching staff pools for salary. It's kind of tricky because, you have more than 10 coaches now in a lot of respects. I mean, there's just so many guys now on these staffs, but the primary coaches on this Nebraska coaching staff, their combined pay pushes nearly $8 million. And there's still some loose ends that we don't know, like Ed Foley. What's his situation?
You have a pretty good idea, though.
Yeah. Like,
what do you think he'll be doing?
Well, I know what he's going to be doing. He's going to be kind of a liaison, in-state recruiting relations guy in the program. But here's a breakdown. Like Satterfield is contracted to still make $1.4 million. So you would assume that stays the same because he's contracted for that. Dana Holgerson. And there's a lot of people like, why? Well, if Marcus Satterfield were to work here or not, Nebraska still pays him $1.4 million.
So you might as well.
And so why not?
Yeah.
And the days of having only 10, you could have more than 10. So Holgerson 1.2, John Butler 1 million, Donovan Raiola, Addison Williams, Mike Eckler, all kind of in that 600 range, 625 to 650. Then you have Dvorak, Phil Snow, Braden got 400. That was announced this week. Dakiel Shorts got announced a long time ago. Phil Simpson in his really first true full-time role. EJ Barthel, I think, has a deal pending still. So I don't know if that was this year's number. We don't know what EJ Barthel's new number is. I would imagine he's going to be around 400 if I had to guess.
So there you go. And I'd say the staff's improved. The money's the money. You got to,
the money is the market.
The market's determines that. Nebraska's doing what it has to do at the coaching level to compete against the very best. Now you just got to see if they can get it done. But I'd say at the very least, it's a acceptable staff. Now you just want to see how far beyond acceptable can it go.
This unlimited coach rule, though, just gives you so much more ability to add more.
So, you're talking about for many, many years, there was 10 full-time.
It was
staff.
9, then it went to 10.
Yeah. When we say full-time, that's not even
contracted.
Yeah, contracted. There were other coaches, but there were 10 main assistants, we'll say. That's over, kind of.
Well, and then you have Corey Campbell, the strength coach, who makes $550.
Mm-hmm. But you have guys like Jamar Mosey, who's gigantic in the picture.
$200,000. Now, the difference, and I don't know this, but is he a standard W-2 employee or is he a contract coach?
I have no idea.
And I would think he is a standard employee. Like there's a difference between a contracted and a employee. When you're contracted, you're guaranteed the money.
Well, another thing, you're so good at this stuff. Like these guys all are on 2-year deals. Are any on 3-year deals?
They initially, when the rule came, he did some of that. I don't know if they do that anymore. Now I was talking to our buddy Brent Hubbs from VolQuest, and he was telling me the new Tennessee AD Danny White. And I didn't say new; he's been there a few years now.
Yeah. No, he's not new.
He's been there now a long time. Yeah. But he doesn't like to do 2-year deals.
He likes 1-year deals.
So he puts assistants on 1-year deals there.
Which, I mean, let's just speculate on Eckler. If Eckler had a 1-year deal on his desk for whatever amount, and he was getting a 2-year deal at Nebraska, and his parents live in Fremont, that might explain his presence here. It could be simply that, right?
But
right?
yeah,
if you have a 2-year deal versus a 1-year deal, that alone is really important in this world to a coach where stability is hard to find. Right?
Yeah, because if you do lose your job, you'll still get paid.
Right.
And then you're guaranteed that money for an additional year. And I'll be interested in the coaching industry if we're seeing more of the shift to more 1-year deals.
Why do you say that?
These departments are so leveraged.
Good point. Interesting.
Like, when you have to fire a whole coaching staff, think how much money you're paying out.
God. Sean, do you understand what you're saying? Do you understand why more? I'm just throwing this out. Why wouldn't, if you're a college coach, you look to the NFL where there are guaranteed contracts?
No recruiting,
6 weeks, 7 weeks of no work.
Pro football coaches don't even have to have Twitter accounts.
No. Do you see how much more appealing that would be?
Like, think of the pro guys we know. They don't even go on Twitter.
No, the pro guys
X.
I know, and again, I hope people don't think we're just throwing things out there. One of the assistants I talked to, he told me he literally could go to the moon and the team for which he works wouldn't care and wouldn't know probably. You get 7 weeks.
Oh, we talked to Zach as a head coach, and in February he's always on that big vacation, and just real. I mean,
in a lot. The difference is now I don't know. Head coach, it might be a little different, but assistants, they're on vacation. They're gone. They're not on their phone all the time. I happen to work next to a guy every day, Bill Bush, who lays it out really in stark terms, Sean. When those guys are on vacation, they're not on vacation. They're on their phone a lot.
Just like when we go on vacation.
Yeah. So the NFL, what I'm trying to impart to you is the NFL has to be more appealing in a lot of ways to these guys. Has to be.
All right. Keeping odds and ends going on the money topic. The Department of Education did come out with a statement this week about future rev share payments in Title IX. And initially, in the final days of the Joe Biden administration, there was a statement that came out that said that rev share payments would have to fall in line with Title IX, meaning the $20.5 million that's set to be paid starting in July would have to be split down the middle between men and women's athletics. And if that were the case, there was just it would completely throw off everything in the dynamics of what's been going on. Well, they come back with a statement saying, no. There's nothing more to that. And I'll read you the exact quote here.
Who came out with this?
This came from the Department of Education. Enacted over 50 years ago, Title IX says nothing about how revenue-generating athletic programs should allocate compensation among student athletes. The claim that Title IX forces schools and colleges to distribute student-athlete revenues proportionally based on gender equity considerations is sweeping and would require clear logical authority to support
legal
authority to support it. That does not exist.
When that original statement came out, one of Biden's last deals, you know what? I read it. I didn't take it seriously for a second.
Well, there's no way it was going to stick. I mean,
no.
I don't know why you'd even mess with that in your last days. Like, it didn't even make sense.
No, I gave it no credence whatsoever. Not for a second. I thought it was almost like something that didn't even need to be addressed. It was so silly. It was silly.
Because everybody had been working so long in one direction, and then in your last days, you put out it just never added up.
Go figure
why that all came out in that fashion.
One thing adds up, but yeah, you're right. It didn't. So this makes sense.
So yeah, the Title IX, everything's back to normal. We still, the House settlement case still has not been finalized, but there's not going to be a Title IX element. So basically, football is still going to get like 15, 16 million of the 20.5.
And men's basketball,
women's basketball, and volleyball.
Men's basketball will get approximately what of that share of the 20.5?
I mean,
4 to 5.
2 or 3. I mean,
No, 2 to 3.
2 to 3, and then women's and volleyball will get the other rest.
It is proportionately dominated by football and men's basketball.
Which, to be fair, the Big Ten television deal alone, I think, paid out in the 2023-24 fiscal year $64 million, and that will go up to like $68 million the next year. And so, I mean, so like most of the money in this thing is the revenue share money, is the football money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not NIL. And I like we call this NIL, but this is the TV money essentially being paid to the athletes.
And that, you know what? That makes all the sense in the world to me. And it always has. That's always been sort of the issue. All this TV money and the athletes don't make anything. No, this makes sense.
Yeah, it got to the point where it's like, how many more senior level positions can you add?
Good point.
How many more amenities can you add to your department and trips and things like that? So this will be a big change moving forward. And then finally, on odds and ends, Husker baseball does open up this weekend. They're in Arizona, so it should be a lot of Nebraska. I think my dad's going, by the way. I think he's going to be out there. He lives in Phoenix in the winter.
Dad, hey, he'd give you a scouting report on this team.
But they play Friday against UC Irvine, Saturday against Vanderbilt, number 16th ranked Vanderbilt, Sunday against San Diego State, and then Monday against Grand Canyon.
So Nebraska picked second in the Big Ten.
Behind Oregon.
Will looks like he has a pretty good team. Now, get ready, though. It's always tough this time of year when they go out and play competition like this, and get ready for some people to, if they would falter a little bit, to say the sky is falling. It never is.
Last year they did well in these games.
Yeah, they can. It can.
It was the midweek that kind of cost them last year.
Big Ten champs, though.
Big Ten champs, defending champions in the tournament.
So this will be this. Now, me and you haven't gotten into this discussion too far, but we will as these games start to get played.
So, and Joseph and Carter will be covering that for us.
Okay. Joseph and Carter, the Young Bucks.
All right. Well, lots to keep up on. Husker softball got a big win today as well on Friday, 20-1 over Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Okay. Bats came out.
But get on Husker Online. If you're not a member, we have a new promo. No promo code needed. If you're a first-time member, your first $1 for every week. No code needed. So it comes out to be $52 for your annual subscription is the new rate. As a new member, it's $1 a week for 52 weeks. They'll charge you $52. That's a highly discounted promo. Go on HuskerOnline.com to take advantage of the $1 per week annual special. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan signing off here for Husker Online Headlines.